A woman who's lost everything. "What are we going to do now, Chuck?" Janice asked with tears in her eyes. "I really should have divorced him if I had any pride left. I just feel like I still have feelings for him. I'm just not sure that's enough." "I know exactly what you mean, Janice. Logically speaking, we should shoot them both and make it look like a murder-suicide," I suggested. "And we both know neither of us would ever do that, even with all the provocation they've given us. They probably know we wouldn't have the guts to do something like that. Hell, we're like rags for them to wipe their feet on, like the breeze under their wings, so to speak," Janice sobbed. "They really didn't take too many risks, you know? They have no doubt that we'll accept their deception and do nothing about it. They're the predators, and we're the prey." Janice and I were discussing our spouses and the fact that at this very moment they were making love like rabbits in Janice's bedroom. Bridget, my wife, had a very good job at an advertising agency. She was a career woman who always dominated our marriage. Janice's husband, Roger, owned a successful construction company. He was used to people jumping when he said, "Picture a frog." Janice lived in his shadow for the entire 22 years they were married. Their 2 children were in college in California, so their nest was empty. Our only daughter with Bridget worked her first year as a history teacher in Minnesota. Janice, Roger, Bridget, and I were an unrepresentative foursome, but we had socialized a lot over the past 10 years. Roger was a large and boisterous guy in his 50s, and Bridget was a beautiful woman in her 40s and 50s, though she looked a few years younger. They looked good together, but they weren't married, at least not to each other. This is where Janice and I enter the scene. I was skinny and wiry, weighing in at 170 pounds and no more than 6 feet tall. Compared to Roger, I looked like an anemic weakling. Janice was a couple inches over 5 feet tall and probably weighed 15 pounds over her ideal weight. She had short-cut brown hair and hardly used any makeup. In my opinion, her ass was nicely rounded, but too big if you use those supermodels or even Bridget as a standard for women to emulate. Janice told me of her suspicions a couple weeks ago. We had no trouble devising a scheme to prove her theory. She told Roger that she was going to visit her cousin in South Jersey for the weekend. I told Bridget that I had to go to Harrisburg to meet with a client and wouldn't be back until Sunday afternoon. Janice and I agreed to meet at the local mall on Friday night. We watched a movie, ate dinner at a local Red Lobster restaurant, and then when it got dark, we walked back to our street. Our houses were on the same block, with only one house between them. Janice quietly let us in the front door. Before we could even get up the stairs, we heard Bridget's moans coming from the master bedroom. Roger was also calling for her quite loudly. Bridget never let me talk to her like that. We listened to them for a few minutes, went downstairs and left. Now we were sitting in my living room trying to decide what we should do. I couldn't help but wonder why we hadn't discussed this possibility at dinner. We knew we would catch them in bed together, but we had never tried to make a plan for what we would do afterward. "If Bridget wants Roger, it'll be a moot point," Janice whimpered. "I weigh more than her. She's taller, slimmer, has big breasts and an important job. He'll just kick my ass to the curb and leave it there. She's a goddamn goddess, and I'm just an ugly, fat ball." "Well, I don't know about that, Janice. Bridget looks great all the time, but she's not exactly a human dynamo. If Roger hasn't realized it by now, he will as soon as his testosterone levels return to normal," I predicted. "She's a walking erotic dream. She can't be bad even if she's just lying there like a log, for God's sake," Janice blurted out. "Well, that explains why she's just lying there, doesn't it? She knows she's stunningly beautiful and feels she doesn't have to make any effort," I admitted. "Think about how that makes me feel. If Bridget ever comes back to me, I'll have to follow Roger's statue." "You can only look good in any unbiased comparison," Janice stated, sniffing her nose. "Thank you, Janice. I appreciate any ego boost I can get. I know I can't compete with Roger. Hell, he mentioned it often enough, like it was his best friend in fifth person when we met you guys. This should be on the Mythbusters show. Have a few guys like Roger sleep with a couple women, and then a few good guys like you make love to them. And at the end of the show, the ladies can tell the audience who they prefer. Guys like you always win, Chuck," Janice said firmly. "That sounds like a great idea." I grinned, even though I was the one being hornswoggled at the moment I said it. "Do you really think I can match Bridget in bed?" Janice asked. "No, not really," I answered with a nonchalant look. Janice's chin dropped and tears ran down her cheeks again. There's no comparison, Janice. You'd outdo her with your arms, tits, ass, anything, I laughed, somehow feeling better about my situation. I told you she was a good lover at best. What makes you think I'd be better than Bridget? Janice asked. You and I have never slept together, and Roger would never brag about me. He's never even complimented me in that area. It's all about the two of them, Roger and his friend. There are several reasons why I think you'll be better than her, Janice. You're smart and funny. You love to laugh and make others laugh. You're a giver, and Bridget is a taker. You have a figure that most men like, and you're selfless. I'm sure you'll win any comparison, I finished. Wow, Chuck. You make me feel so much better, Janice smiled. You think a man would want to sleep with me and not feel disgusted because I'm fat and boring? Are you kidding me? You're a lot of fun and you have nice curves. We're in our 40s, Janice. We're not supposed to look like we did in our 20s, but you still look great. Guys my age, for the most part, aren't looking for some skinny chick. We want a woman who enjoys making love and then can have a discussion or play golf or go out to dinner with a man and have a good time. You're a really nice guy, Chuck, Janice remarked. I wish I'd found someone like you instead of Roger. Or rather, it's you I'd like to find if I'm allowed to be so bold. That's great for my ego again, Janice, but I wouldn't dare claim a woman after Roger. I'd be a huge disappointment. You won't even realize where you have me there, I replied dejectedly. Why don't you let me be the judge of what I feel and don't feel, Chuck? Janice asked. Why don't you try seducing me if you think I'd be such a great sexual partner? Maybe after sleeping with Bridget all those years, you think I'd be a sloppy piece of ass not worth your efforts. I walked over to Janice and kissed her hard. I ran my hands over her round ass, pulling her to me. When we stood up, she grabbed my hand and dragged me to her bedroom. Roger and Bridget were asleep on Saturday morning when Janice and I entered the bedroom. They were naked. We shouldn't have barged in on you like that, I began rather loudly. Janice and I have a proposition we'd like to discuss with you if you're willing to listen. Bridget and Roger opened their eyes at the same time and looked at Janice and me standing next to their bed. Bridget added and quickly pulled the sheet up to cover their nakedness. Chuck, it's not what it looks like, she began. I'm just sleeping the hell out of Roger? I finished for her. Don't bother with all the stupid stuff you have to say if you get caught sleeping with your neighbor. Janice and I are fine with that. Really? Roger grinned. That's a pretty good attitude on your part. You'll bring Bridget back a little tired but happier than ever. Roger, you're a real gentleman. Your generosity is only one of your many lovely qualities. We, Janice and I, thought we should try to fulfill the need you both must feel for the excellent sex you provide each other. Roger reached out and squeezed Bridget's breasts a couple times. All this time Bridget was silent, watching Janice and me intently. She quickly pushed Roger's hand away from her breast. Chuck and I have a suggestion for both of you lovers, Janice intervened. We think it would be fair if we kept the very arrangement that is forming now for every other week. Next Friday, Bridget and I would return to our homes and our spouses, 2 weeks and then switch again. This would allow the two of you to enjoy each other without having to hide or lie to us. Switch? Roger asked. You mean swapping wives? I don't want anyone sleeping with my wife, not even a needle. You don't seem to have bothered to tell my wife that, stallion, so it seems just fair to us. The ladies will be able to go into their homes and get whatever clothes they need anytime they want. They should try to do that when the couple occupying the house isn't doing the dirty work there, I suggested. Bridget was silent. She seemed to be mulling over the suggestion. Roger scratched his balls and tried to gather his thoughts. Are you sure you're okay with that offer, Chuck? Bridget asked. I wouldn't want you to get too upset. I certainly don't want to jeopardize our marriage. What the hell are you talking about, Bridget? I blurted out. You're sleeping with Roger. If you really cared about our marriage, you wouldn't be in bed with him right now. It's just sex, Chuck, Bridget replied. I don't love Roger the way I love you. I didn't expect you to find out and jeopardize our marriage. I was even going to give you extra love to make up for it. Oh, okay then, Bridget. As long as it's just a night of love and you don't love him, I'm fine with it. That's a big relief. This should work out great. You love me, but you're sleeping with Roger. Fair enough. I see the subtle difference, and I like the idea. I'll just sleep with Janice, but I'll love you. I think we have an agreement. I don't know about letting you sleep with Janice, complained Roger. I'm not the kind of man who shares a woman. You're an ass, Janice spat out. You've been sharing Bridget for weeks. The playing field is only slightly leveled. If you just want a divorce and I get at least half the business in this house, we could do that. Is that what you want, Roger? Hell no, Roger exclaimed. I've worked too hard to build my business to lose it to some fool. Go ahead and sleep with Needle, I don't care. 2 weeks will be an eternity for you. Come on, let's do it. If you insist, Roger, I replied nonchalantly. Then we have an agreement. Have a nice 2 weeks. See you later. I took Janice's hand and turned to leave. Are you going back to our house to sleep in our bed? Bridget asked. Bridget, we're not going to resort to name-calling, I replied. Janice and I are going out for breakfast, and then we're going to go watch the Yankee game. Bye. I discovered that Janice was a big baseball fan. I had been following the Yankees since I was in elementary school, so we decided to go to the game. Bridget hated baseball like any other sport except for adultery. We got back from the game before dark. Janice and I were sitting at the kitchen table doing a crossword puzzle when Bridget and Roger suddenly appeared in the doorway. I just need to get some clothes so we can go to the club, Bridget explained. It will only take a minute. Janice and I nodded and went back to working on the puzzle, ignoring Roger. I knew from experience that Bridget would be upstairs for the better part of an hour. It takes a lot of time and effort to be incredibly beautiful. Roger, why don't you have a beer yourself? I suggested, pointing to the refrigerator. At least you'll have time for one. By the time Bridget came downstairs, Roger had finished his beer. Janice and I finished the puzzle. I was showing Janice how to play Sudoku, and was well on my way to solving it when they left the house. Janice had made some very tasty brownies, and I told her so. I was pleasantly surprised at how easy she was to talk to, and how many things we both liked. Soon we retired to the bedroom, and she showed me an even more interesting way to enjoy a brownie with whipped cream. Over the next week, we had a lot of fun. The love was great, but we were in our 40s, and we both knew we weren't going to live just that. We went to movies, played board games, and even sat at home one evening after work and read books. Janice was a generous, gracious woman. Making me happy just seemed to please her. She remarked more than once that Roger didn't even notice the little things she did for him. I, on the other hand, was constantly surprised and delighted by the things she did when we were together. The first time we went to dinner, and I held her chair for her, she looked like she was about to cry. Chuck, that was so sweet. You always treat me like a lady, and I love it. Thank you for being so kind. My mother would kick my ears in if I didn't open the door or pull up a chair for her, Janice. It happens on its own now, though I'm almost deafened by all these rules. I grinned. Well, I have to compliment your mom when I see her, Chuck. She did a great job with you, Janice replied with a wide smile. Mom's going to like you, Janice. She's never gotten along with Bridget, I admitted. She thinks Bridget is snobby and stupid. Why would she think that? Janice grinned. Friday night was approaching, and Janice was about to go home, and I felt uneasy. I realized that I was going to miss her company, as well as her really good mood. I really hate to let you go, Janice, I admitted honestly. The last 2 weeks have been a real pleasure for me. It's changed the way I feel about Bridget sleeping with Roger. It's not so bad now. In fact, I'm ready to make a final exchange any time. Chuck, what a nice thing to say. My self-esteem has taken a huge leap with you. I feel so much more comfortable with who I am and how I look. You've been great for my ego and confidence, too, Janice said. I may not have the right to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Will you stay true to me, except for Bridget, of course? It won't be hard, I laughed. I have no friends or lovers except you, Janice. I can promise you with certainty that I will be completely faithful to you, except perhaps for Bridget. It's hard to say how well we'll get along after her 2 weeks with Mr. Roger. Well done, Chuck. I know Bridget gets first dibs, but I get the rest, okay? I can't wait until my 2 weeks with Roger are up so we can trade, Janice admitted. I just wish I had caught him cheating years ago, if it could have had this result. With Janice's last remark, the door swung open and Bridget and Roger walked in. I was surprised again at how little anger there was in me. Being with Janice had really taken the edge off my anger at them. "There's your wife, Tiny," Roger grumbled. I looked at Bridget and saw no smile. In fact, she seemed annoyed by his rude behavior. She wrinkled her nose, turned, and headed for our bedroom. "Come on, Janice. You must be desperate for me by now," Roger continued. "Let's go home and take care of your needs." Janice smiled grimly at me, picked up her bag, and headed for the door. I quickly walked over and took the bag from her hands. I expected Roger to carry it for her, but it turned out that the thought had never crossed his mind. "What the hell are you doing?" Roger demanded an answer. "She's coming with me." "I know, Roger, but she has a heavy bag and I'll carry it." "That's just being polite," I added. "Gimme the damn thing," Roger growled. "It's her bag, but I'll carry it, so be it. I don't want you following her around." I handed the bag to Roger and watched the two of them walk down the street toward my house. I'd never noticed before what a bastard Roger was. It occurred to me that he was insecure and all his bravado was contrived. The fact that his barbs had no obvious effect on me seemed to annoy him. Watching Janice leave with Roger, I felt a pang of jealousy. I realized that I didn't even want him with her these 2 weeks. It bothered me much less now that Bridget was sleeping with that pompous bastard. What was that supposed to mean? What was this all leading up to? When I walked into the bedroom a couple hours later, Bridget was reading a book. She looked up and smiled weakly at me. "I'm really tired tonight, Chuck. Let's just go to bed and we'll talk tomorrow," she admitted. I involuntarily compared her to Janice. She was in control and just seemed miserable. Was it just me, or was she just a pathetic fool? Maybe she was kind to everyone else. Roger seemed to think she was just a weirdo. I didn't even bother answering. Went to the bathroom to do what I always do before bed. I went back to the bedroom, got into bed with my back to Bridget, and fell asleep a few minutes later. 2 days later, Janice knocked on my kitchen door shortly after I got home from work. She seemed upset, and I was worried about her, helping her to sit up. She put her hands on the table and ran her fingers over the grains on the oak counter. I waited for her to speak. "Roger told me he wanted a divorce when he got home tonight, Chuck," Janice sobbed. "I don't really feel bad about leaving him. I'm just worried about what I'm going to do. I've never been on my own." "I'm sorry to see you so upset, Janice. I can't say I hate to see you run away from that jerk," I admitted. "You could do so much better. Was he mad at you for spending 2 weeks with me?" "That's what's weird, Chuck. He didn't treat me as badly as I feared he would. He told me that since he had found another love, he was going to divorce me even if it cost him half of everything he had," Janice recalled. "He has it all calculated and laid out on spreadsheets. I'll get the house, he'll pay me for my share of the business, and we'll split the rest of the assets." "That's very fair, isn't it, Chuck?" Bridget interrupted him, appearing in the dining room doorway. "Is old Roger in love? That's so sweet. Chuck, I think we should do the same. I'll give Sam Jenkins all our information and ask him to draw up an equitable agreement for us. We won't argue or dispute anything. We'll be divorced before you know it. Then you can comfort poor Janice while Roger and I have fun." I was thinking the same thing, at least about the divorce. It became obvious that Bridget despised me, and I felt nothing better about her. I didn't know if Janice would want me to comfort her. That was something I would worry about after the divorce. "Okay, Bridget. We'll go to the lawyer and tell him we've agreed to divide our assets and get an amicable divorce as soon as possible," I agreed. "I don't think either of us should see anyone else on the side until this is all behind us. We all have grown children, but we don't want them to think we're weird people or anything like that. We certainly don't want to confuse the issue or let jealousy ruin a perfectly good divorce." "I agree," Bridget replied immediately. "Janice, please tell that machine you married and will soon divorce that we've decided to cool our feelings until we're all divorced. After all, it will speed up the process and make us all happier." Bridget smiled. "Yeah, I don't think you understand Roger very well, Bridget," Janice began, but Bridget interrupted her. "Oh, I think I do. Roger wants a trophy wife who matches his position in the business world. He wants a hot wife who looks great." Bridget laughed. "Well, maybe you do understand. That's exactly what he told me tonight," Janice admitted with a strange smile. "I just don't want you guys to let our divorce affect you. I can't make any promises about future relationships after our divorce." "Don't worry about it, Janice. Chuck will be available if you want him. He wasn't looking for women before, and he's not likely to start now. And if you don't want him, he'll survive. If you both make up your minds, just snap your fingers, and you'll have him as soon as I let him go," Bridget replied confidently. "Okay," Janice brightened. "As you realize, I haven't offered or promised anyone else a relationship since our divorce. Now that you guys are getting divorced, I feel so much better. I know it sounds awful." "I can understand that. Trust me," Bridget nodded. "We'll start our game tomorrow. Just tell Roger to be patient." "I promise, Bridget." "You two won't be seeing much of each other until the divorce is final," Janice said as she headed for the door. The next few months were some of the best months of my marriage. I was amazed at how well Bridget and I got along when it came to getting away from each other. Even though we lived in the same house and even slept in the same bed, we suddenly stopped being shy about dressing and undressing. It was as if we had become brothers or sisters. Bridget could undress or dress right in front of me, and I hardly paid attention. She still had a great body and was very attractive, but I no longer lusted after her and certainly didn't love her. It just made any conflict easier. During this time, we saw very little of Janice and Roger. I did see a cargo van outside their house a couple weeks before the divorce was to become final. It reminded me to find a place to live quickly. Bridget was going to keep the house and furniture. I took only a few souvenirs with me. The next morning, while I was at work, I got a call from Janice. Her voice sounded happier than I had anticipated under the circumstances. She wanted to meet for lunch, and I agreed. "Chuck, will Bridget get your house after the divorce?" Janice asked with her usual directness. "Yes, she is. I need to find somewhere to live right away," I said worriedly. "The divorce would be final in 2 weeks." It went very well, and Bridget was very honest and cooperative. She's thrilled to ditch my boring ass and become Roger's trophy wife. Roger has moved his personal belongings out of the house and is living in an apartment closer to his firm's headquarters, Janice reported. "Our divorce will be final next week. Would I be too pushy if I said you could move your personal belongings and your boring ass to my place?" "Do you really want me, Janice? I was hoping we could see each other more, but I didn't dare ask you about moving in with you," I exclaimed. "I would love to move in with you." We spent the rest of lunch discussing how and when I would move into Janice's house. We laughed and enjoyed each other's company. I was looking forward to my new life. Bridget and I had to go to court to sign some papers to finalize our divorce. I felt great, and Bridget was almost dizzy. I picked up a few things I wanted to keep and left them at Janice's last weekend. As I left the courthouse, I was going to meet Janice for a long lunch and a few drinks to celebrate. As we were walking down the hallway toward the exit, we saw Roger. He seemed to be waiting, glancing back and forth at his watch or the nearest door. He was dressed in a dark suit and looked pretty good, as much as I hated to admit it. "Roger," Bridget exclaimed. "I'm so glad you got my message. I couldn't reach you on your cell phone. I thought I was going to have to track you down at your office. You're so handsome. Let's go out and celebrate tonight. You can move in with me for the weekend." "What the hell are you talking about?" Roger asked, perplexed. "I can't celebrate with you." "Of course you can, Roger. We're getting married in a few weeks and going on a wonderful long honeymoon. We're free to do whatever we want." "Damn it, Bridget. I wouldn't marry a fool like you. Hell, you cheated on Chuck, and he's one of the finest men I've ever known. If you cheated on him, it'd only be a matter of time before you moved your ass for some other guy. You'd have to be a complete idiot to marry a woman who cheats on her husband." It surprised me that Roger actually said one good thing about me. Bridget was stunned to hear Roger talking to her. This was not at all how she had planned it. At that moment, the nearest door opened. A young, well-dressed woman stepped out of the ladies' room. "All right, Roger. I'm willing to marry you so you can make an honest woman out of me and give our child your last name," she grinned, stroking her heavily pregnant belly. "And I'll be the one to hire your next secretary, and you can bet she'll be well over childbearing age. The end."